के लिए आपका शुक्रिया. Well, the death toll from the ongoing unrest has now mounted to 203 in Iran, according to activists and rights groups, including both protesters and security forces. Demonstrations that were sparked by severe economic hardships and demands for regime change have spread across major cities, with chants of death to Khamenei echoing through the streets despite intense crackdowns. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has invoked the harshest measures, vowing no retreat and accusing protesters of being tools of foreign powers, including the United States. A public prosecutor has threatened the death penalty charges for those deemed enemies of God, signaling a potential escalation in repression. Compounding the chaos, Iran remains under a nationwide internet blackout that has now exceeded 60 hours, severely limiting information flow, communications, and independent verification of events. Rights organizations warn that this blackout could enable further violence, with reports of live ammunition, mass arrests, and injuries continuing to emerge through limited channels. We'll continue to talk about this with our guests. And on the international front, U.S. President Donald Trump has also repeatedly signaled America's readiness to intervene, stating that the U.S. stands ready to help the Iranian people achieve their freedom. He has warned of severe consequences, including potential military strikes if the regime continues killing peaceful protesters. Reports indicate Trump has been briefed on options for targeted airstrikes on Iranian military sites, though officials stress no final decision has been made and no action is imminent. Meanwhile, Iran's leadership has hit back, warning that any U.S. strike would target American troops and interests in the region, raising fears of broader conflict as well. We'll talk about this with our guest. Joining us on the show is Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev, former diplomat, Major General G.G. Dwivedi, Global and Strategic Defense Expert, also with us. Mr. Sumit Peet, Senior Political Commentator, joins us on the show as well. And last but by no means the least, Professor Madhav Nalapat, Editorial Director of the Sunday Guardian, joins us on the show as well. All right, Professor Nalapat, sir, I'll begin with you. This is obviously an evolving situation at this point in time, but how evolving is the situation is something that we may never know. There's a blackout in Iran because of the internet being suspended in most parts. We've also heard that Starlink is in fact trying to help media agencies to put out the truth over there. But how do you see this conflict going further, sir? And once again, to put a caveat in there, there have been protests in Iran in the past as well, but none of them have had the intensity and the kind of graphic details in terms of the destruction going on ever before. Professor Nalapat.
Look, I will tell you very honestly, the clerical regime is hated even more than the Shah was hated up to his overthrow in 79. You remember Shah was removed in a popular uprising, and my view is the clerics are going to be removed in a popular uprising. Now you may say that they have got the army and the IRGC and all that. I mean, the Shah had a very formidable army and security forces. It didn't help him. Why? Because at the higher levels, of course, they may be linked to the regime, in this case, the clerical regime. At the lower levels, they find their uncles and aunts, they find their brothers and sisters, they find their sons and daughters demonstrating on the street. When that happens, they lose the incentive of firing on them. And as a consequence, the army and other instruments of coercion that are there with the clerics will be valueless. So in my view, Vinny, the reality of the situation is that Iran has gone over the brink, and the clerical regime has made a terrible mistake. It says that there should be death to a Jewish state. Mar bar Iran, death to a Jewish state. I mean, how can you do that and expect the Israelis and the US and other countries not to respond? And let me tell you, they are deadly serious about that threat. Deadly serious. They have conducted a large number of terror strikes. We saw one on October 7, 2023, in which a bunch of terrorists came and into an Israeli village, all harmless people there, and they abducted them, they killed them. The most unspeakable horrors were done to them. So, in that situation of extreme hostility, how on earth can the lower ranks be expected to follow orders for much longer? So, in my view, very soon, in a matter of weeks, possibly, the clerical regime will also have to collapse because you can't be so hated by the public and survive as a regime. A regime has to have some minimum degree of goodwill among the population, and the clerical regime, as I said before, is even more hated now than the Shah of Iran's regime was hated in 79. And at that time, none of his soldiers and security, as I said, saved him. And none of them are going to save the clerical regime because the lower levels, my information is that they absolutely loathe the clerical regime. Their own family members are taking part in these protests. They are being shot at. And after some time, they're going to decide we are not going to shoot at our kith and kin, our friends, people like us any longer. Thank you.
All right. Sumit Peer, you've been following this space. You've discussed this space in the past as well. Iran as a country needs to be understood, before we, come to any conclusions as to whether what's happening there is right or wrong. We know that it's a sponsor of, massive terrorist infrastructure and ecosystem throughout the world. We also know that they hate Israel. We also know that human rights do not matter when it comes to this clerical setup. We also know that before 1979, Iran, pretty much had a very liberal flair, as much as Afghanistan did at one point in time. But, it's this invocation of theocracy and this religious hegemony that has destroyed this once bustling country into this, chaotic, in fact, land of confusion at this point in time. Do you think the Americans coming in and taking control of Iran rather than Venezuela would have been a better option?
Vinny, thank you very much for having me on your show, and a very good question to begin with. Look, we know what Iran is. To give you an example, all the terror organizations, Shia, Sunni, all Muslim terror organizations in the world by default are funded by Iran. 7th October 2023, Ismail Haniya went and met Khamenei. It is documented. He agreed for some $100 million for the project which he was going to execute which he executed on 7th October 2023. And Khamenei gave him some money, and every month he used to send him an installment for genocide of Jews, what they did on 7th October 2023. Khamenei has spoken against us in Kashmir. Khamenei has been all over the place, and he has devastated the great Persian civilization, the great Iranian people. And what is the logic? What is the proof? If I look at 1979, 70 riyals, Irani riyals were $1. And if I talk to you yesterday, Vineet, kal ki baat, 14,50,000, 14.5 lakh Irani riyals is equal to $1. That is what the mullah regime has given to the Iran. That is how beautifully Iran has progressed. Look at the other parameters. You have $38 billion in your foreign exchange reserves, which are going to last for 4 months of imports. So 4 months you are Pakistan, 5th month you are Afghanistan. Your oil is not selling, your factories are being devastated, and anything and everything which can make money is gone. We are looking at a 72% inflation month by month up to few days back. Now we are talking of hourly inflation. We are talking of 62% tax on income with 72% inflation. The things are so bad that you and me, if we're living there, thank God we are not. We could not afford a loaf of bread. That is how it is. There are people who are on the streets on each and every town of Iran, 300 places, including Marsad, the holiest place. We have in Shiraz, we have in Qom. That was where the mullahs got all the legitimacy from. And these, by the way, these are all the sites where you had nuclear assets which were taken down by Americans. So you have this, it's not a protest, Vineet. It's a revolution which is happening. And as per some sources, I'm against some sources, We know officially, as per the media, which is being reported, they have killed 25 people yesterday. Now, as some sources are claiming that 250 people got slaughtered yesterday because a fatwa was converted into a judicial degree saying anybody who's protesting, you might be a peaceful protester, no gun, nothing. You are against Allah, you are against the Rasul, and you are against Iran. So there, if I with a gun go and kill you, it is legitimate. So manslaughter, genocide is being legally permitted by the mullah regime. To best of our knowledge, my knowledge, his children and his people are out. He's living there with a couple of men. He's trying to do as much as he can. Look, the Americans have been warning him, we are going to come for you. We need, as we talk, it is evident that we know Marco Rubio spoke to Benjamin Netanyahu today morning. We know they are planning something. And I would be very candid to say, yes, Mossad is involved. I will be very candid to say, yes, CIA is involved. And yes, Delta Force is parked in a base in Iraq, which is very near. And yes, sir, CIA paramilitary, the most elitist and the most secret service or group of American people will be in Iran as we talk. So if Americans or if Israelis get him covertly, they will eliminate him. The Khamenei, there's no doubt around it. But what they want to do with the minimum collateral damage. They want to channelize the anger of the people because people genuinely cannot survive. Debt to Khamenei, debt to Islam, debt to mullah regime. Bring back the Shah, bring back the monarchy. These 5 things were punishable by death. I don't want Syria. I don't want Lebanon. My life is for Iran. These are the slogans of there. From, Marsad to Sinjan, Balochistan, everywhere the protests are happening. Everybody is on the streets. You have killed so many people. Officially, what the media claims, there are more than 100 people dead and there are a few thousand which have been arrested and a few thousand who are possibly injured. Now, people are saying mortuaries are filled. People are saying hospitals are filled. It is a complete genocide happening. What are you doing? You're cutting the phone. You're cutting the internet. Then you're letting your Islamic Revolutionary Guard, it is not the police or the paramilitary now, Islamic Revolutionary Guard come and slaughter people. Mohammad Pazishkian is on record saying, be nice with the people, you cannot use force, you cannot use live ammunition. But the regime under Khamenei, IRGC and the judiciary has clearly said, try to eliminate as many of them you can. Now the world cannot look at this genocide where the people have 72% of the inflation and 62% of the tax. And I told you where the real is and where the real is today. If they are coming peacefully, so do they become enemies of the God? Do they become enemies of the Prophet? And do they become enemies of the religion? Does a peaceful protester need to die because he's protesting? I cannot have life, I cannot have a loaf of bread, my family is starving. That is where the position is. Okay. And this man is trying to control the country as if it's his fiefdom. Sorry, it is not your fiefdom. You don't own Iran, you don't own Persian culture. You people of Iran are not your servants. And I'm giving you all the factual accounts. We don't know last night what kind of a genocide he did.
All right, fair enough. Good points there, Sumit. General Dwivedi, how do you look at the situation? And do you think there is also, a probability that if the Americans do get into Iran to, to liberate the people or defend the human rights of the people who have been suffering at the hands of the clerical regime, it could, spiral into a global conflict? Because there are countries like Russia and China that have supported Iran implicitly.
Well, Vineet, as a student of Middle East, I have my own perceptions. And I like to put across a couple of points. Firstly, the playbook which Khamenei's regime had followed earlier, especially in 2019, when there were protests against the increase of price of gasoline, and again in 2022, when the women-led protests were there due to the custodial death of Mahsa Amini. So that playbook is not going to work because couple of factors which are not going to ensure that Khamenei actually survives this time. Point number one, in 1979 when the revolution took place, it was the students who supported the revolution, and today it is the students who are opposing the Khamenei regime. Secondly, the economic situation is absolutely very dire, and there is in fact likelihood that even there may be a famine. Because economically, I think Khamenei regime has run out of steam. The third very important point is what role America, Israel, others are playing. In June last year, Israel had launched Operation Rising Line, and America had pitched in with the Operation Midnight Hammer. So they already tested the waters, and Iranian reaction was very subdued. So therefore, it's quite likely that this time America and Israel would most likely come in, because without their support, the genocide will continue, and only that is the restraining factor that which Khamenei regime may not actually go for bloodbath, because there is a very high chances that President Trump and Israeli put together may this time pitch in. Also, when you see the allies of Iranian allies, Russia did not do much during the last June airstrikes, and so also China also just kept themselves away. So therefore, I don't think they are going to come in a big way. And the last sector which Iranian actually had a trump card were the non-state actors. Today Hamas is weakened, the Hezbollah is no match, and Houthis also are not forced to reckon with. So therefore, Iranian reaction, whether through the IRG, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, or whether through the non-state actors, is going to be very subdued. So most likely what is going to happen is that this regime is on the brink of collapse, and little bit of push from the American and Israeli will ensure that it happens earlier than later. And the last point is, yes, there is going to be a turmoil in the Middle East. Why? Because the whole balance of power is going to be disrupted. The Saudis, whose arch enemy is Israel, Iran, would quite like that this, there is a regime change, and also for Israel. And my last point is that most likely the regime would collapse, but for that some bit of help from America or Israel would be needed. Otherwise, there will be a bloodbath, and the revolution that is going on will be very costly for the Iranian people. Vineet.
All right, fair point, sir. Ambassador Sajdev, how are you looking at this situation? Of course, at this point in time, there's no amount of diplomatic pressure or exertion or any overtures related of that sort, can stop Iran from trying to quell these protests as much as possible.
Thank you, Vineet. I have a nuanced view, which is at variance with most of the other honorable panelists. I believe that on the whole, while the situation is serious, it is the fall of Khomeini regime is not imminent, at least not for the foreseeable future. There are 2 or 3 reasons I have for this. Firstly, why the situation is more serious than before. Many factors have been mentioned, but to me the most important factor is the merchant class standing up in protest. Iran has historically, at least for past 200 years, very powerful Tehran merchant class. Even in the 19th century, Shah had to take back his budget, his taxation, because Iranian merchants did not like that to happen. Even in 79, student protests were there, but only when the merchants decided to ditch Shah Pahlavi, then the die was cast. So far, for first 30 years of the revolution following Islamic Republic, merchant class and the clergy had a good thing going, and the merchant class profited from the variable exchange rates. They were imported at one exchange rate and sold to public goods at another exchange rate, pocketed the money. What happened subsequently is that Pasdaran, the Revolutionary Guard, or Bunyads, the various foundations, went into the business due to sanction busting and other areas. So the merchant have felt squeezed by the Republican Guards getting into import-export business, getting into various manufacturing and distribution networks. Bunyads or foundations for orphans, for widows, for martyrs, etc. have also been active. And this has squeezed the merchant class, the Bazar Ghanis as they are called, and capital with the issue of exchange rate variations. 43,000 is the official exchange rate of a real to dollar, and the going rate is 1.43 million to a dollar. Now, that you import at one rate, and then the rate changes, and you suffer in your profit. So all that has made merchants restive, and the compact between clergy and business private business has become a bit weak and fragile. Second issue, why it is not going to be an overnight kick against the Ayatollahs and the Islamic Republic. I think if Trump and Israel do intervene and bomb places, they would do great deal of service to Iranian regime, as Saddam Hussein did in 1980.
You're absolutely right, sir. Absolutely right, sir. We've run out of time. Sumit, I saw your hand go up. Quickly, make your point, and then we're going to wrap up. Quickly, please.
The point here is that, this time around, if you look at the Tehran Bazaar, it was gutted. If you look, all the merchants, they are on the roads. If you look, it is not a question of what they are going to do. They can't survive with $38 billion. And let me quote you Mohammad Paziskian. He has said in Tehran University lecture around 12 days back, there is nothing he can do. There's nothing I can do to fix the economy. I am not a magician. My hands are tied. There's nothing I can do. And they announced a Mehengai Bhatta for the poor. You know how much it was? It was $7 for a family of 5, 7, 8 for a month. That is what the Mehengai Bhatta is going to be. 500 rupees ka Mehengai Bhatta, where you will feed your family of 5, 6 or 8 for a month. That is how dire the situation is. And today Americans and Israelis are looking for this opportunity. They have softened the target. It is for them now or never. As far as why Trump went for Maduro, because when you got Maduro in Venezuela, you got $25 billion of oil. If you get Iran, you decimate all the proxy groups of Islamic terror in the world. You let the Middle East get into a turmoil, and you make Israel the Daroga of the Middle East.
Fair enough, Fair enough. We've run out of time. Appreciate everybody who joined in and weighed in. We have some breaking news coming in from the line of control in Kashmir.